Welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. I hope this started. I don't know. Sometimes with Facebook Live, when I do it on my computer, seems like it starts late. Okay, so question is how to find distressed property owners. So I'm going to make a few assumptions. I'm going to talk about it, and if you stay to the end, I'm going to talk about really some things you should do before you actually even look for a distressed property owner. That'll probably save you an incredibly long amount of time. Now, so when you say distressed property owners, that could be something where maybe you're driving for dollars and you see a property that's in distress. That could be maybe a property you got off a list or pre-foreclosure list or some kind of list that says that the property is distressed. So the question is, how do you find the owner? So obviously the simplest way is to Google it and use the free services that are out there, name search, something like that. But the best way is to skip trace. Skip tracing is a service that will match up a name and an address with a phone number. So there are a lot of good skip tracing services out there, and it works fairly well with just an address. It works better with a name. So here's the best thing to do, and we're going to talk about more about this at the end to save time. The best thing is to go to county records and see who owns the property and to search that person's name and their address on the skip tracing service. So there's a lot of good skip tracing services out there. Batch is good. Um, there's so many. Skip Genie, IDI is good. These are services where you don't have to have somebody come. It's easy to sign up. They're usually about 15 cents a hit. I have a good service called Skip Force. If you want to skip through me, but it's not a one-off kind of skip. It's really more for bulk data. But if you want to do a one-off, you can use any of those services. It's easy. Just don't use some no-name guy that you saw on Fiverr in a cave in Pakistan. Those guys may or may not get you good data, right? Because there's services like Data Zap that are not great, 4 cents. I used it. It's not great data. So you want to skip trace it, and you want to get the name and number. That is how to find them. There's going to be multiple phone numbers that come up, and you want to call them all. And some of those numbers are not going to be right. Some of those numbers are going to be disconnected. Some of those numbers are going to be other people, right? So you got to be careful when you call. I would usually use a property address instead of a name. So here's the way I would do it. So I would say, first of all, I'd apologize, right? I use this on all the time. Every time I call anybody, I say, listen, I apologize. I may have the wrong number. I may be wasting your time. I really feel bad. I make them go, yeah, how can I help you? And say, I'm calling about 123 Main Street. Now, the reason why I use the address instead of a name, instead of saying I'm calling about John Smith, is because sometimes when you skip trace, you're going to get people who may have lived at the address. You're going to get relatives of the people at the address, tenants at the address. You may just have some affiliation to the address. So if you say, hey, I'm looking for John Smith, and it is his brother, for example, he may go, John's not here, or maybe he just had a fight with his brother, or maybe it's a tenant who doesn't even doesn't know. So I always start with the address, and I say, I'm calling about this address. Is that something you know about? I apologize. And sometimes they'll go, yeah, that's my house. Sometimes they'll go, that's my wife's house, my father's house. If they say, no, I don't know anything about this, I'll say, I'll have a name here, John Smith. Does that ring a bell? Then I'll go to the name second. And then you just want to see, and you have to be like a detective. You're going to go, and you're going to go, well, I think his number is blah, 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 blah. And then you call that number, and you keep going forward. That's how you locate them, right? You skip trace, you get some phone numbers that you can work on, and you put on your detective hat, and you start calling those numbers. And like I said, a lot of those numbers are not going to be right. Sometimes you're going to have to just leave a message. You're going to have to call back. It's not a simple thing. It's not an instant kind of thing where you get the guy's cell phone, you call, he answers and goes, sure. And guess what? Very often you're going to find these people, and they're not going to want to sell, right? Or they already sold, right? And that's what we're going to get to at the end, why you should save some time. How I can save you time. So that is the best way, skip tracing. I would say, oh, I'm sorry. Use free services first, and after you use free services, use pay services. But use good pay services, not bad services. And understand this is not a simple thing, right? And the harder it is, here's something people don't talk about. The harder it is for you to get in touch with the owner, the more likely it is, after you've done the work I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, the more likely it is that it'll be a deal, right? Because think about it. Everybody's skip tracing. If everybody's getting the number of the cousin and not calling any further, you may be the only one that's getting, making those extra 7 calls, right? And there's a lot of people who don't respond to messages, and you have to call them and hopefully get in touch with them. And it's harder to get in touch with them, the more likely it is that you may be the only person that may be looking at the house to make an offer. So that is good. Now, here's the thing that saves you time. So I'm not sure if it's different in New York, but I would say what happens a lot when you find a distressed property is that it's not a deal because it falls into what I describe as one of four categories. Now, some of these categories may still be a deal to you, but it's not to me. So, one of four categories that makes it not a deal to me is A, if it's bank owned, so a bank foreclosed on it, it's almost never going to be a deal once it's bank owned because the bank's going to, some banks actually now are renovating properties themselves. But even if they're not renovating the property themselves, they're going to put it out on the MLS. And most of the time when it goes on MLS, it's not a deal. Now, if you're a flipper, maybe that they'll sell it at enough of a discount. But for me, um, I find once it's on MLS and I have to compete with everybody, it's not something I want to deal with. So that's number one. Number two of four is that it's already been bought by an investor, right? So maybe an investor went directly to the bank, which is unlikely, but maybe it sold at auction. So obviously, if another investor got it, probably not going to be a deal for you. The third of four possibilities is that it's incredibly deep underwater, right? So I saw something recently where they had like $1 million balance on the $1 million mortgage. I went into foreclosure a long time ago, and I couldn't pay more than $600,000 for the house. So to me, now you may say, well, I'm going to go try and short sale it. That's fine. I really need water. Here's water. Um, you may say, okay, I'll try and short sell it. If you want to do that, that's great. But understand, you haven't even spoken to the seller yet, right? So first you have a challenge of getting to the seller. Then you have to convince the seller that he wants to sell it to you. Then you got to deal with a lender, and hopefully they can get the price down. For me, it's too much work. I do buy short sales here and there, but I hate them, and I don't do the negotiations myself. And if my whole business was short sales, I don't know. I think I might shoot myself because I like talking to the decision maker, and that decision maker is going to decide whether he's going to sell me the price that I want. With a short sale, you have the decision maker, the seller, and then you have the seller's not really the decision maker. Right? You got to talk to the lender who's the decision maker. And the fourth is, and this happens a lot lately, is reverse mortgages, right? So I am one of the few people alive today who actually know and understand completely what a reverse mortgage is. I did a bunch of them when I was in the mortgage business. It was a very good product, but it's incredibly confusing because, and I can get deep into the woods on reverse mortgages for 40 minutes if I want to. The the amount that of the mortgage that is recorded has nothing to do with the actual balance on the mortgage. So the way it worked is most reverse mortgages, whatever the most that was available to the borrower, you recorded a mortgage for 150% of it. So if the borrower was available to get $400,000, you'd record a mortgage for $600,000. That doesn't mean the borrower took $400,000. Sometimes the borrower would take only $20,000 and leave the rest on a line of credit, or they take monthly payments and maybe they only took $100,000 worth of payments. So you have a $600,000 mortgage that you see recorded, and sorry, and then really the balance is 200,000 plus interest, so it's 300,000. But if you took the full amount, then interest is accruing on that interest. The balance might be $900,000. You don't know, and the only way to get that number is to actually be the borrower, which very often, if the property is distressed, the borrower is dead, or the heir of the borrower. And a lot of these heirs don't understand how reverse mortgages work. When their parent told them they took a reverse mortgage, they think the bank owns it, and it's way too much of a hassle to get into. Now, I do buy properties with reverse mortgages, having said that, but only when I'm in touch with either the borrower or the borrower's heirs. So most properties are going to fall into one of those four categories that I find. And for me, those aren't deals. So the way to find these things out is to go to county records. So in Nassau County, we are very blessed in that we have one good website called uslandrecords.com, which shows where everything in Nassau County is. In Suffolk County, it's a little more complicated because you have to get the 19-digit SCTN, the Suffolk County tax number. Then you have to go to the Suffolk County Clerk's website, and you can only see what documents are recorded. You can't actually see the documents unless you pay for it. It's a big pain in the ass. And Nassau County is much better. And in 5 boroughs, really easy. You go to Acris. You just need the borough block and lot. By the way, in Nassau County, you need the section block and lot, but it's also easy to get. So you got to do a little bit of research. So ideally, I'm just going to find these distressed properties and then reach out and then pay money to skip trace to the owners is foolish. What you should do first is do some research online and see if anything falls into those categories. And then, if it doesn't fall into those categories, then you work your ass off to find the seller. But if it does fall into those categories, I'm not wasting any more time on it. You may want to, but I would say it's a mistake if it falls into any of those four categories. Now remember, the first two categories are probably gone. The last two categories, if you want to do short sales and you want to go start digging into reverse mortgage situations, you can. For me, it's not worth it. It's just too much. It's too much effort for very, very low chance of payback, right? Remember, and I just found out something great on Driving for Dollars, right? The guy from Deal Machine was speaking at an investor field event, and they say 300 properties should get you a deal, but he said that's only when the ARV is $100,000 or less. In our area, where the ARV is like $500,000 or more, he says it takes over 1,200 properties to get a deal. So interesting fact. When he told me that, it made me so happy because I did like 600 Driving for Dollars deals. I didn't get one deal, and I thought maybe something wrong with me or something wrong with New York. But the truth is, when you're dealing with the higher end, you need a lot more. I hope this was helpful. So remember, the way to find distressed property owners is by skip tracing them, getting their information. But I wouldn't waste my time on it until you've searched county records to see if it's really a dead deal before it starts. So if you want other ways I could, oh my God, jeez Louise. Sorry. If you want other ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in my course that teaches how to do this, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you are watching on any channel, please click the thumbs up. The likes really help me. And please keep the comments coming. I go live 5 times a week. Sometimes I don't know what the hell to talk about. If it's and every comment gets answered. If you have a simple comment, I'll reply with an answer. If it's a topic I've covered before, I might send you a link to a video. And if it's something new, I'll do a video on it. So thank you very, 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 very much for watching.